So sometimes people ask me if I'm afraid to speak in public, does it make me nervous? And I say, no, only at Island Palm Baptist Church. That's the only place. Because at Island Palm Baptist Church, because I move around a lot, I get excited, and I can actually like fall to my death here. There's no, next time they ask me like, would you like a pulpit? What I'd like is a net. Maybe next time I come, if I get invited back, maybe you guys could like create a net for me, or maybe like a little doggy type of fence or something, because I'm very nervous about this. I don't like it. Good morning. I am actually very happy to be here because this is a great church that cares about people. You've got that Kids Day coming up pretty soon. I mean, see, that's not some small, that's a real thing. You're reaching the community that way. You're telling the community that we want to share the love of Christ with you. We want to create a nice place for your kids to come. Like, people will hear the gospel and get saved because of that. So you guys are doing what you're supposed to do. You're out in the community. You're not hiding in these four walls. They're nice walls. And so that's why I like coming here. It's great. So thank you. This morning, I want to talk about how awesome Jesus is. I am so excited about Jesus. As excited as I am about anything in my life that I'm excited about. I can't get over Jesus. And it's been 30 years, and I still can't get over it. I just love him. Sometimes before I was saved, I always wondered, like, why do people, these Christians, why do they talk about Jesus all the time? It's because you got to know him. If you knew him, you'd understand. There's the young kids today, they say, if you know, you know. I don't know, do there any young kids here? I'm so old. But, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, hang in there. Maybe you will get to know. Because the reason why we talk about Jesus all the time is because he's so amazing isn't a strong enough word. Outstanding. Glorious. These words that we come up with are not good enough. We don't have the words to exclaim how our Creator is. And so I'm excited about that. And I want to talk about one particular aspect of what Jesus does. How many of you guys know that Jesus heals? He does. People are sick. We live in a broken world. Adam and Eve were given a choice, and they took the choice that every single one of us would have taken. Yeah, I'm going to rebel against God. Sure, why not? I'll do that. And as a result, everything that we don't like is because of our rebellion. I don't poke at Adam and Eve. I would have done the same thing. I still do the same thing. I've known the Lord for quite a long time. I still, every once in a while, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do my way. I'm going to go my way. And it doesn't work well. And as a result, that's why there's sickness in the world. And that's why there's suffering in the world. And that's why, some things that we bring on ourselves and some things we don't bring on ourselves. Sometimes you're just born with a genetic disposition to cancer or diabetes or maybe some autoimmune disease or something. It's awful. One of my least favorite things was bringing my daughter, Gabriella, to Children's Hospital. Many of you know, like, my youngest was born with a cleft lip and palate. Not a big deal. And we used to have to bring her to Children's Hospital all the time. And it was awful going there because she was like the healthiest kid there. Some of the things you see that people go through is terrible. It's really awful. We live in a world where there is suffering. There is brokenness in this world. We will experience it. We will meet those who experience it. We will not be shielded from it. And so one of the things that I really love is that Jesus heals. And it's great. In fact, if when you read the New Testament, it's one of the things that you're going to find out about Jesus right away, because he's doing it all the time. There are at least 26 different occasions of healings in the New Testament. So it happens a lot. And there's a great diversity in how Jesus heals, and who he heals, and the way in which he chooses to bring about the healing, and who he decides to do it to, and who he decides to do it through. There's no one way that it happens. Sometimes he heals one person. That's cool. Sometimes he heals a whole lot of people at once. Can you imagine? Imagine if all of Hampstead came out with all the sick people of Hampstead. It would be probably all of them, right? And they were all healed in a day. And that's amazing. I want to look at some of the healings quickly. In John chapter 4, starting in verse 46. This isn't my main text, it's setting it up. It said, and these should be familiar to you. So he came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And at Capernaum, there was an official whose son was ill. When this man heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Imagine that, having a son at the point of death. I can't. So Jesus said to him, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. The official said to him, Sir, come down before my child dies. Jesus said to him, Go, your son will live. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. And as he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked them the hour when he began to get better. And they said to him, yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. Verse 43, the father knew that was the hour when Jesus had said to him, your son will live. And he himself believed in all his household. So, this is going to be a little bit back and forth. I'm not going to do all the work here. How did Jesus heal this boy? Anybody? How do you do it? Faith. Yes, but what did Jesus physically do? He just spoke it. That's all he did. He didn't meet the boy. He didn't see the boy. He just said, your son will be fine. And he was. And even the dad was like, okay, what time did he get healed? Like, I love that. I love how human that is, right? I mean, I would do that. I would be like, yes, Lord, I believe you. And they're like, hey, by the way, what time was it that he actually got healed? Oh, wow, I guess it really was. Looking at his Apple Watch, I guess it was, So how did Jesus heal this boy? He just spoke it. Far away. The boy wasn't even there. That's how powerful Jesus is. But that's not always how he does it. In Matthew 8:14, Peter's mother-in-law. And when Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her. And she rose and began to serve him. So how did Jesus heal this woman? Yeah, he touched her hand. Okay, so sometimes Jesus just says it. And sometimes he's up close and he touches you. That's cool. One time there were a whole ton of demon-possessed people. Matthew 8:16, he said that evening they brought to him many who were oppressed by demons. Many who were oppressed by demons. And he cast out the spirits with a word and healed all who were sick. Matthew 8:16. So this time there was a ton of people. It says many who were oppressed by demons. And he cast them out. How do you do it? Yeah, with a word. He just spoke it. The one who spoke existence into being, who said, let there be light, can say, get out of that person, unclean spirit. There was a centurion. Ooh, a Roman. Does Jesus care about the Romans? Yeah, he does. Matthew 8:5, he says, when he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at him, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. So Jesus said, okay, I'll come over, I'll heal him. And this is so cool. But the centurion replied, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. So Jesus was willing to be there physically, but the centurion knew something about Jesus. He showed his faith by saying, no, you don't even have to come. I'm not even worthy. Just say it. Just say it, Lord. And then he says why he believes it. He said, for I too am a man under authority with soldiers under me. And I say, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. Verse 13. And to the centurion, Jesus said, go, let it be done to you as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. So how did Jesus heal this servant? Again, yeah, he just spoke it. He just said the word. And the centurion understood why. Because he said, look, I have authority. I'm under authority. And I do what my master says. And my people under me, they do what I say. And that's how authority works. He's saying, Jesus, I believe you have authority. You can say it. You can do it. And whatever you say, it'll be done. That's faith, to believe what Jesus said. To believe it so, Lord, you don't even have to come to my house. Because I know, if you speak, the sickness will listen and leave. See, people say, faith, yes, faith is terrific, but I can't see faith. I can't go to Walmart and buy a pound of faith. I can't say, I want 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot of faith and make it purple. Now maybe green, I got purple. No, faith is not material. But you can see the effects of it. I tell kids this is how I explain faith to kids. I say, if I told you that I put a bomb in this room, and I said it's going to go off, but if you run out of the room now, you'll live, how do I know who has faith in what I said? And even the kids understand this. They say, well, whoever runs out of the room. No, exactly. See, we can't see faith as immaterial, but you can see what faith does. You can see the actions. You can see it. And by this man who said that, and a Gentile centurion of Rome, of all places, saying, you know what, you don't even have to come to my house, just speak it, because you have authority. You can see that man's great faith because of what he does. It's amazing. We could talk about more examples. Sometimes Jesus puts mud on the eyes of a blind man to give him sight. I don't know why he puts mud on the eyes of a blind man. It's what's in the scripture. Sometimes he does. He doesn't do that every time. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he tells a lame man to get up. Sometimes he commands Lazarus, a dead man, to get out of the tomb. He speaks to dead people. And they're not dead anymore. Because when the Son of God speaks to you, you answer. Even if you're dead. So understand this. Jesus has authority and power to heal. And he does it differently every time. And that's kind of weird because I'm the type of person that, I like things in little boxes. I like to understand things very black and white. So I want to know how does Jesus heal? Oh, this is how it happens. But that's not how it happens every time. Well, sometimes he has to be there. Sometimes he has to touch you. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't. You could be in another town. Look. If my 3 pounds of meat in between my ears could fully understand the mind of God and what he does, then that wouldn't be such a God, would it? But this is what we see in the scriptures. Jesus doing all through diverse means and ways of healing people. The healing I want to focus on today comes from Matthew 8, 1 through 3. If you open your Bible, I have the ESV. I think that you have the same translation in your pew, so that's good. The ESV stands for the Extra Sanctified Version. So, Matthew chapter 8. If you hit Mark or Luke, you've gone too far. And if you hit chapter 9 or 10, you've gone too far. So verse 1. When he came down from the mountain, meaning Jesus came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. And behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will. Be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. Matthew 8, 1 through 3. And in Luke, perhaps because Luke was a physician, he added the fact that he was a man full of leprosy. So in Luke's account of the same thing, it says he's full of leprosy. And other translations say advanced case of leprosy. So this leper had it bad. He was full of leprosy, he had an advanced case of it. Let's talk about leprosy, because fortunately for us in the 21st century, we don't really deal with leprosy all that much. Dr. Alan Gillen, writing for Answers in Genesis magazine, writes this. He says, the term leprosy, including leper, lepers, leprosy, leprous, occurs 68 times in the Bible. 68. 55 times in the Old Testament and 13 times in the New Testament. The precise meaning of the leprosy in both the Old and New Testament is still in dispute, but it probably includes the modern Hansen's disease, especially in the New Testament, and infectious skin diseases. Leprosy has terrified humanity since ancient times and was recorded as early as 600 BC in India, China, and Egypt. Horrible disease. Hansen's disease is still a major health problem. Many have thought that leprosy to be a disease of the skin, but it's better classified, however, as a disease of the nervous system because the leprosy bacterium attacks the nerves. Its symptoms start in the skin and peripheral nervous system outside the brain and spinal cord, then spread to other parts, such as the hands, feet, face, earlobes. Patients with leprosy experience disfigurement of the skin and bones. Can you imagine? Twisting of the limbs and curling of the fingers to form the characteristic claw hand. Facial changes include thickening of the outer ear and collapsing of the nose. Tumor-like growths called lepromas may form on the skin and in the respiratory tract. Imagine having tumor-like things forming in your respiratory tract. And the optic nerve may deteriorate. The largest number of deformities develop from loss of pain sensations due to extensive nerve damage. For instance, inattentive patients can pick up a cup of boiling water without flinching. I mean, I know a lot of us would think, hey, no pain, that'd be great. It's not so great. It was the work of Dr. Paul Brand, the late world-renowned orthopedic surgeon and leprosy physician, with leprosy patients that illustrated in part the value of sensing pain in the world. Pain can be very good. The leprosy bacillus destroys nerve endings that carry pain signals. Therefore, patients with advanced leprosy experience a total loss of physical pain. When these people cannot sense touch or pain, they tend to injure themselves or be unaware of injury caused by an outside agent. In fact, some leprosy patients have had their fingers eaten off by rats in their sleep because they were totally unaware of it happening. The lack of pain receptors could not warn them of the danger. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention says that 250,000 people contract Hansen's disease every year. That's today. And there's good news today. I mean, it's bacteria, it can be cured, but not during Bible times. Leprosy is no joke. Leviticus 13:45-46 says, the leprous person who has the disease shall wear torn clothes. So if you have leprosy, it's on you. You have to do the right thing and tear your clothes and let your hair of your head hang loose. And he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease, which could be the rest of his life or her life. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. Leviticus 13:45-46. And we might think that's harsh. Why so harsh? I mean, as if they have to wear, ratty clothing. They can't keep up their hair. If that were bad enough, they'd have to say, hey, unclean, unclean. They have to warn people. But I'm saying this is a disease that can easily spread through the camp and kill everybody. It's no joke. Lepers are outcasts. They're unclean. They have to look unclean. They have to tell you they're unclean. They must live in isolation outside the camp because they're contagious. It spreads. You see a leper, you run. You see a leper, maybe you even attack. Grab a stick, throw some rocks. It wouldn't be uncommon to haul insults, throw stones, or even try to murder a leper. And why not? They're going to die anyway. Horrible condition, and they're going to spread it to all of us. Lepers lived apart from the community of God's people, outcasts. Imagine not even being visited by your loved ones because you could kill them through your disease. I don't know if anybody watches the show The Chosen. I like it. I think it's great. One of the things I like about it is that it does a good job showing what life was like during Bible times. So that's one of my favorite things about it. And there's a short scene that I want to show you. I typically don't show videos. It's not my way to do it that way. But I asked Pastor Kyle, and he said, sure, I'm out of town. Do whatever you want. So he didn't quite say it that way, but yeah. And so I want to show this quick scene to show you what it definitely could have looked like to be a leper. Here's a guy in this scene. He just wants some money. He just needs a little bit of money, and he's desperate, and look how he gets treated. So if you can show that quick scene, that'd be great.
She was crazy. Just because I run a charity does not mean I have to buy rocks from every old lady.
Charity.
Just like everything Roman, it's part of business. We loan proceeds seized from criminals to the poor. And others. You're passing through. I do not recall seeing you before.
I come from Tyr. The mallet is carved of maple from Sidon. The chisels are bronze. The trowel is tin from Phoenician ore.
My. Why would anyone want to part with these?
I'm on my way to the Dead Sea.
Shalom, pilgrim. Lucky me. I do not often see items of such quality. If only they were not brought in by some stranger passing through.
They weren't stolen, if that's what you're saying.
I can justify 20 denarii.
You're joking, that's a fraction of what they're worth.
Hades and sticks!
I beg you.
Leper! You are marked! You couldn't just die! You had to take us all to hell! The womb was forbidden within 4 cubits! Take it and go!
I didn't mean you. Any harm. My tools were all I had left.
Why couldn't you just die? If you think about, when I read the scriptures, I do try to picture, what's going on. I kind of make a scene in my head and try to make it, so I like to learn visually. And when you think of a leper, what they would have looked like to a first century audience, maybe they looked okay. Like that guy, he has some lesions on his skin that he could hide somewhat. Sometimes they're much worse off, and putting clothes on wouldn't be able to hide it. But this guy was desperate. He just needed a little bit of money because he wouldn't be able to get a job anywhere. He'd be at everybody's mercy and charity, and you can see what people thought of lepers. They're rejected. And we learned that one of the side effects of leprosy is that you don't feel pain. But I think that lepers definitely could feel pain. Maybe not physical pain, but emotional pain. That's worse. They were rejected, deserted, abandoned, discarded, forgotten, hated. Reminds me of the woman with a blood issue who had it for 12 years. I preached on her a couple years ago when I was here. Life has pain. It's hard. It's horrible to be a leper. It's horrible to live in fear of leprosy. And so, look, I don't condone what that man did, but I kind of understand it. He's terrified that he's going to get this disease and then waste away slowly himself. But amidst a life of pain and suffering, Jesus heals. So I want to look at this healing again in Matthew 8, 1-3. It's only a couple verses. When Jesus came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. So there are a lot of people. We're creating this scene in our head. We're doing that. Okay, let's get some. We need a bunch of extras because we're gonna shoot it with a bunch of people. Everybody can see. Great crowds are following him, and behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him. So the leper was close. To kneel before somebody, you're right there. He said, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. There's that faith. Oh, wait, we can't see faith, right? Because it's not material. Yeah, but you can see it by what it does. The leper is willing to risk injury and insult and beatings and rocks being thrown at him to come before Jesus and said, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. So how did Jesus heal this guy? He touched him, that's right. He touched him. He didn't pronounce him healed from a distance. He didn't command the illness away, and he could have. And how good would that have been? It would have been terrific. That would have been great. It would have been terrific if Jesus had done it, said, okay, I'm going to stand over here, you stand over there, you're clean. And that would have been amazing. But he didn't do it that way. Verse 3, and Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him. He touched a leper with a great crowd around. Everyone saw it. You touch a leper, you become leprous. The point of this Bible passage is not so we can go find a leper colony and start touching people. Because when any human being touches a leper, the leprosy goes on you. Except if you're the son of the living God. Then there's an exception. Then your cleanness goes to the leper. I always tell people that if you got white gloves and you play in the mud, your gloves will become muddy. The mud doesn't become white glovey. And that's an object lesson for sin. If you want to play around with sin, you're going to get sinful. You're not going to make sin clean. Except if you're Jesus, okay? Jesus can touch lepers. Jesus can touch women with blood problems. Jesus can touch Samaritans. He can touch all the people who are untouchable. Jesus touched a leper. If I were one of the disciples, well, I mean I am, but more a today disciple, not the then disciple. If I were a then disciple, I would have said, Jesus, maybe this is one of the times where you heal from a distance. Maybe this is that time. But Jesus didn't do it that way. He walked up to the broken man and he healed him. But, did I say this already? He touched him in front of everybody. In front of a large crowd. And I love that. I started this off by saying I'm crazy about Jesus. This is one of the many reasons why. This is so cool. And leprosy is a picture of sin. I mean, think about what leprosy is. Leprosy is terrible. It spreads. It destroys. It keeps you from God. Because if you're leprous, you can't even go to the synagogue. You can't even worship your God. Because back then, you had to go to the synagogue and you had to hear the Torah being read. But no, if you were a leper, that you wouldn't have been able to do that. You were unclean. And sin is the same thing. I don't know if any of you listened to 20th century Bible teacher J. Vernon McGee. Remember him? Yeah, I liked him. On Sunday afternoons, I listened to him on the radio. And he wrote about Leviticus 13, where it talks quite a bit about leprosy. He says, we come now to another unusual section of this book. I won't speak in J. Vernon McGee's characteristic, accent. If you listen, you know what I'm talking about. But he said, we come now to another unusual section of the book, the section on leprosy. Someone may ask whether this is practical for today. May I say that all of this book is practical. Leprosy and running issues of the flesh are accurate symbols of the manifestation of sin in the heart of man. When you see leprosy in the Bible, that's to remind you of sin. It shows the exceeding sinfulness of sin and the effect of sin in action. The emphasis of Leviticus is on sin. In the heart of this book is worship of a holy God, and this extended section on leprosy and issues of the flesh. This filthiness and repulsiveness of sin are represented in leprosy. The hopelessness and deadliness of sin are accurately portrayed. The leper who trudged down a hot, dusty Oriental road crying out, unclean, unclean, was a reminder to the Israelite that he too was a moral leper who needed supernatural cleansing. Did you get that? Leprosy shows the exceeding sinfulness of sin and the effect of sin in action. We're the leper. That's what Jesus is teaching in the Gospels. That's what the prophets were saying before Jesus came. That's what Moses was teaching in the Torah. That's what God had been showing through the history of Israel until now, is we are that leper. Leprosy is a picture of sin, and we've all sinned. We live in a culture that's constantly trying to diminish sin, saying, oh, it's not really sin, it's fine. Don't be so prudish. Live a little. It's fine. You know what we need? We need to have a greater fear of the Lord and a greater sensitivity to sin. Not a weaker one. Not a weaker one. Now we live in a culture that's telling even children to go to drag shows and be sexualized, and we're playing with fire much too closely. We're not even ashamed anymore. I remember when I first started doing street evangelism, I would say to young men, when I'd ask them about sin, I'd say, well, let me ask you, have you looked at pornography? And what they would do every time is they get all bashful about it. They'd say, well, and they look around and they go, yeah, I guess so from time to time. Yeah. That was about 10 years ago. Now, I don't even ask. I just say, when was the last time you looked at pornography? And they're like, today, yesterday, I think. There's no looking around. There's no, don't get me wrong, we've always been sinners. That's nothing new. But what's changing now in our culture is we're comfortable with it. It doesn't bother us anymore. It's like we don't feel the pain of it. We're leprous. And we don't realize it's killing us. Because sin is fun and great until we stand before the throne of a holy God. And we will. If we need help being disgusted by sin, then I have an object lesson for you. Think about leprosy. Think about that nasty, disgusting disease. Makes you almost want to throw up. And then think about, wow, sin is worse than that. Sin is worse than that. But Jesus did more than just heal him. He touched him. It's the kind of touch that portrays dignity from one human to another. When was the last time a leper, do you suppose, was treated with dignity? And Jesus didn't just heal him with a word. He healed him by touching him. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were a hug in there too. Although I don't want to go beyond the text. And this is why we're so crazy for Jesus. Because he touches the untouchable, and that's us. His love, his compassion, his willingness to go against the culture. It's outstanding. The culture taught you to shoo away from lepers. Throw rocks. Get them back. Do whatever you can to get them outside the camp. You see a lot, hey, shoo, get out of here. Jesus touched the man and healed him. You and I are unclean. We might not have bacterial nerve damage, but we have moral damage. Every one of us has told a lie before. And we think it's funny. It's funny, oh, I told a lie, I got away with it. It's not funny, because we have a holy God who is just not only truthful, but he is truth. See, it's not that God is truthful. Yes, he is, but he is truth. And when we lie, we're made in his image. We're supposed to represent him. And when we lie, we're representing him badly. We're blaspheming. Because God is truth. He can't lie. But we do. We steal. We take what doesn't belong to us. And it's so easy to do today. With the internet, we can download songs and movies we didn't pay for. We can waste time when we're getting paid by the hour. We can do all kinds of things. We've all done it. We've all lusted. Jesus said if you've lusted, you've committed adultery. If you've hated somebody, you're guilty of murder. Dishonored your parents. See, the Ten Commandments are not a checklist to show how good you are. The Ten Commandments is an x-ray of our soul to show us how bad we are. We are morally leprous. But I've got good news. Even though God would have every right to kick us out of his presence, to put us outside the camp, we have a God who rescues sinners, who touches them, who hugs them, who adopts them, who doesn't just say, okay, you're clean, but now, no, and you're mine. Jesus says, you're mine. I love that. I love that. If we would just show humility and admit, imagine the folly of being a leper, having the claw hand and the lesions all over your body, maybe your nose, all the things. How ridiculous, how foolish it would be to say, no, I'm not a leper. I mean, you're not fooling anybody. But But it would be absurd. It'd be like, dude, like, who are you lying to? Like, you're obviously a leper. And yet, so many of us do that about sin. We stand and we go, oh, I'm not really a sinner, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm going to go to heaven because I'm a good person. That's even more ridiculous. But that's pride. See, that pride says, I'm fine the way I am. And the Bible tells us God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And that's the gospel message. Gospel means good news, great news. And it is great news, because no matter how leprous we are, we can look good on the outside. We have a God who rescues us, who cleanses us. That's the gospel. He takes sinners and he turns them into saints. And we get to stand before God not because we're good, but because our Savior is good. Not because we love God, but because he loved us and sent his son as propitiation for us. Propitiation is a big Bible word that means sacrifice, a substitute. And that's why if you're here and you're not a Christian and you wonder, why do Christians won't shut up about Christ? Why won't we stop singing about him? Why won't we stop writing about him and blogging about him and Facebooking about him? Because he's a rescuer. And he rescues the worst of the worst, and that's me and that's you. Please, if you can hear my voice and you're saying, I'm not that bad, I beg you, do not let pride keep you from the Savior. Do like this leprous man did. Came before the Lord and just said, Lord, if you are willing, you can heal me. That's all it takes. You don't need a Bible degree. You don't have to be baptized. You don't have to have Bible memory verses, although all of those things are good. You just need to have a heart that says, yep, I've got leprosy, but I know the one, the only one, who can heal me, and I'm going to go to him for it. Can't heal myself. I can't take it away myself. There's no lotion or medication or anything I can do to get rid of spiritual leprosy. Only Jesus can heal. But I want to warn you, you're going to become obnoxious and you're going to keep talking about Jesus. Because how could you not? How could you not? And if you don't, you may not have come to him for healing. Because true Christians, we can't shut up about what he's done for us. I can't shut up when I get a good cup of coffee. I'm like, wow, this is good. I can tell everybody about this place. How much more should we be excited, may I even say evangelistic, about the one who cures us for all eternity? See, it'll make it so that you don't mind being at a university being called a terrorist or whatever they call me sometimes. You can go to the subways and people would say, don't you have a real job? What are you doing here? You can handle all that. It's fine. It's okay. That's what lepers are going to do. Lepers do what lepers do, and saints do what saints do. We tell people about Jesus even if they're mean to us. And that's what I love about Island Palm Baptist Church, because I know that you guys do that too. And you guys are in prayer for those who do. And that's an awesome thing. Hey, let's keep worshiping Jesus. He's worth it. He touches the untouchable, and that's great news for us. Because before we were saved, we were untouchable. Let me pray for you guys. Lord Jesus, I want to thank you so much for your kindness to us, your goodness. Thank you for Island Palm Baptist Church, and that they have a desire to be used by you to reach people outside these walls. That people here will be built up to be disciples of Christ, but also to reach Hampstead and Sandown and Derry and Raymond and Chester and all the different towns that are in the area, Lord. Please let your gospel spread and use us for that purpose. Let people who are injured by sin be perfectly healed. In the name of Jesus, amen. Hey everybody, this is Mark. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please click like and subscribe to the channel. Please visit our website, luke-15.org. We have tons of free resources. Everything's free to help you to become a better, more effective ambassador for Jesus Christ. There's also information at luke-15.org about what my family and I do as missionaries here in New England and really everywhere through the internet. Please share these resources with other people you know through social media, and may God bless you as you take the gospel of Jesus Christ to the lost. We love Jesus. How can we not share him with others? Have a great day.